Hey guys, what's going on? Derek here again, and wanted to make another video for you about the Line 6 Pod HD500. I'm going through the different amp models that are available in the unit. I'm on the second amp model that is available, the Blackface Vibrato. So this is the Fender Twin Reverb amplifier through the Vibrato channel. Same setup as last time. I'm using just as far as effects go, just a hall reverb at 20%. I'm using the 2x12 PHD ported Dr. Z cabinet with a 57 on axis. The room parameter is all the way down. As far as the amp parameters go, everything's stock except for the hum parameter, which I will not demonstrate because it's absolutely useless. Excuse me. And the cab parameters, I have the thump all the way up, but the rest of it is in its stock position. And I kind of tweaked the tone controls of the amplifier to kind of tune it to my guitar, kind of to my liking, which you can do also. So anyway, without further ado, let's get right into it. So, pretty nice sounding amplifier. If you've heard the first video, you can already hear some of the differences. This one has a little bit more gain on tap than the other one. I don't know much about the Fender Twin, but I would assume, I guess, that the Vibrato, since it has the Vibrato channel, if I remember correctly, has an extra 12AX7 tube in it, so that might be what's giving you that extra grit. So, let's mess around with the grit. There it is. The drive's at 70. The master is all the way up, and I'll talk about that in a second, but the drive's on 70. Let's turn it down to 50, and let's hear what we got there. So that's a pretty classic Fender Twin sound. That's the kind of sound you expect to get from a Fender Twin amp model. And I gotta say, I've owned pretty much every multi-effects unit out there, and that's definitely the best sounding Fender Twin I've heard as far as from an amp model. And that's a pretty good place to hear what it sounds like with different guitars, because there's not a lot of distortion to kind of make all the guitars sound the same. So anyway, I'm on the Strat model on my Variax right now. And again, for those of you who didn't watch the last video, my signal chain is the Variax with the using the VDI straight into the pod, and the pod straight into a Behringer. And I'm using the stock patches on my Variax. So you're hearing a pretty standard Strat, a pretty standard tone, and a pretty standard Les Paul sound. Kind of the holy trinity of guitars. So if you have any of those guitars, that's pretty close to the sound you're going to get. Excuse me. So let's hear how the Strat sounds in all its pickup positions. Alright, so let's hear that with the telly, starting with the bridge position. here's the telly in the middle position. And here's the telly in the neck position. Alright, now let's hear the Les Paul starting in the bridge position. Oh, gotta plug the guitar in, people. Alright, so pretty cool, pretty cool. Going back to the Strat model here, let's mess around with this drive control. So there it was at 50. When you first heard it, it was at 70. Let's kind of remind you what that sounds like. Alright, now let's crank the drive up to 100. Let's see what we got there. Alright, so let's drop it back down to 70. I kind of like it there. Sounds good. If I can get it all the way to 70. There we go. Now let's mess around with this master volume control. As I said in the last video, the master volume control is really kind of getting you more of a power amp distortion as opposed to preamp distortion. The drive on the amp models is kind of giving that preamp distortion. With the firmware updates that release the extended amp and cabinet parameters, that master control, again, gives you that sound of a cranked tube amp without all the volume. It's just like a master volume. If you turn it down, you're going to get a little bit less distortion than if you were to have it cranked full bore. Old blackface twin reverb amps don't have a master volume control. They just have one volume. So, ideally or theoretically speaking, if you were to have the drive at 70 and you were to have the master at 70, that's supposed to be pretty close to how the original amp would react. So let's hear it, just to get an idea. So again, theoretically speaking, that's how the master volume and the drive would communicate with each other. Now, obviously, I've never cranked up a Fender Twin Reverb to 7, so because my ears would be ringing to this day. those are very loud amplifiers. So I don't know if that's really true. I mean, preamp tubes sometimes will distort sooner or easier than a power amp tube. So kind of mess around with the ratio, but keep in mind, this is a digital unit. If you want this to behave like a twin reverb, go buy you a twin reverb. You know, I bought this thing not so it can sound just like the twin reverb at my local guitar center. I bought this thing to get a good tone that's unique to me, and it reacts to me and my playing, and it inspires me to play. If I was inspired by a twin reverb, I'd just buy a twin reverb. So, but this model sounds great, and I absolutely love it. So, mess around with the different ratios. Let's turn the the master to 50 and crank up the crank up the drive on the amp. So this might be like on a more modern style amp that has a master volume. You know, you can have the preamp tubes cooking while the power amp tubes aren't necessarily working quite so hard. So here's what that sounds like. So, pretty cool, pretty cool. Let's turn the master back to 70. Hear what that sounds like. And 100. So anyway, that's what the master parameter does. I'm going to bring the drive back to 70 where I had it and where I really like it. It's like, there you go. It's like you're aiming for 70. On the knob, you can just turn it, but with the mouse, especially with my mouse, I have a really small desk here, so I don't have much room to move it, so it's hard to get it exact, but you know, anyway. So that's a pretty classic twin reverb type sound. Let's mess with the sag control for a little bit. Right now it's at 50%, and that's kind of right in between a vintage and a modern sounding amp. And I'll give you a quick demo of it, but that's what you've been hearing this whole video. Alright, I'm going to play just a standard blues lick, and we'll just hear kind of what the sag control does. So that's with the sag at 50. Let's turn it all the way down to 0. Let's play that a little faster. So it's a little bit more punchy right there, and a little cleaner. Kind of a more punchy, cleaner sound. It's a cleaner distortion, if that makes sense. Kind because it's a lot tighter. It's not quite as flubby, as I like to say. Let's hear it at 100. It's kind of hard for me, not being that much of a vintage guy, to play with that because it kind of feels like the amp's trying to catch up with you. Some guys might really like that, and again, 100% might be a little bit extreme, but it does sound pretty decent. I'm gonna put it back at 50, maybe a little less than 50, maybe about 42. So I get a little bit of sag, but not too flabby sounding, I guess. The hum, I'm not even going to mess with it. If you want to hear what it sounds like. I don't know any guitar player that would want hum in their sound, but if you do, there you go. The bias and bias excursion. I was informed by a buddy of mine what these do, or what he thinks they do, if I were to remember what he told me they were supposed to do, I'd tell you. Just look in my last video and read the comics. It's SRV and Double Trouble 1, I think. But the bias and bias excursion, what I kind of came to find or think in the last videos, towards the left, it's more modern type sound, whereas towards the right, it's a little bit more vintage. So let's just test that. Here's the bias at 50. Here's the bias at 0. All right. Here it is at 100. I kind of like it there. It's a little extreme. I want to put it at 64. Alrighty. That sounds pretty good. The bias excursion. Let's hear that at 50. Let's hear that at 0. And at 100. I kind of like that at a lower setting. I'm going to try it all the way down again at 0. Maybe that's a little extreme. I'll put it at about 25. So that's pretty good. Got a nice fat clean tone with a little bit of grit. Let's mess with the cab parameters now, and then we'll start working on some overdrives. The low cut. Now I'm going to go to the Les Paul sound for here. If you're playing an extended range guitar, meaning 7-string or a baritone or anything that's tuned down, and you find that the low end is just a little too much, the low cut can really come in handy. So what I'm going to do is set it at its around 50% mark, and here it is with the Les Paul and the neck pickup. My computer for some reason wants to keep going back to the amp parameters. Let's go back to the cab. There we go. So here's the low cut all the way back where it was. You can really hear that low end with the low cut. Of course, it doesn't help that I have the thump all the way up. Dadgummit, stay on that cab parameters. Anyway, stop! Alright, cab parameters. So the low cut is pretty cool. Experiment with that if you have an exceptionally bassy guitar. The resonance level. Now that I know what that does, I'm probably not gonna crank it up all the way, but here's what it sounds like all the way down. We're back on the Strat. Kind of mellows out the sound. I'm not going to crank it up all the way, but I'll crank it up a little bit, maybe 70%. Kind of brightens it up a little bit, but also makes it really loud. I like it at 50. I like that tone I had. The guitar isn't going out of tune because the strings are stretching. Like I said, I'm kind of in a cramped space and I keep bumping up the headstock against some other stuff, so it's probably knocking it out of tune. So anyway, the thump parameter, drop it down to 50, and let's hear what that does. So this is probably about what the Dr. Z cabinet sounds like as far as the low end goes in its stock position. I'm going to go to the T model or the Telly in the bridge position. Let's hear how that sounds. So that's with the thump at 50. Here it is at 0. So I don't like that sound. Let's hear it all the way to 100. That's what I'm talking about. Nice, fat, low end. And I realized when I got to the end of the last video that I never went over the decay control. So let's mess with that. Again, I don't know what that does. Let's find out together. So that's the decay at 50%. Let's hear it at 0. I wonder if it has something to do with like a room effect or something. So let's turn this reverb off. Here it is back at 50. Or thereabout. And all the way at 100. I don't know. Honestly, can't hear a difference. Maybe it only has effect when the E.R or the room reverb or the room effect, I guess it is kind of a reverb, is engaged. So I'm just going to turn the reverb back on. Alright, so let's mess around with some overdrives. I'm going to start with the boost comp, which I used in the last video, and let's hear how that sounds. So what I'm going for is like a second channel type sound of the amp, so let's hear how that sounds. treble down a little bit, maybe to 30. Alright, now I'm going to mess with the compressor, turn the compressor up to 50. If I want to do that, I'm going to turn the drive down a little bit. So let's hear how that sounds with the boost comp off. Here it is with it on. I might bring the bass up a little bit. That's a pretty nice sound. And just for fun, let's hear some super mega squash on the Telly bridge pickup. So, way too much compression. Here's back 50. That's more like it. So, turn the boost comp off. Let's mess with some overdrive pedals. I have a tube screamer pulled up. Let's just see what we got. By the way, if you're wondering why the guitar keeps going out of tune, the nut was very poorly cut. You could tell somebody did this probably with a butter knife after after they bought it, but it's all good. But you can kind of hear when I was tuning it, a little ping. Every time I tune it, a little pinch. Just pinching a little bit. So, let's hear the tube drive now. I think it's the BK Butler tube driver, or the Chandler tube driver, sorry. Turn that drive down a little bit. Real nice tone. I kind of like that. Let's hear the classic. Let's hear the DOD 250 here. And I dropped my pick. Can't be a Derek Hegwood video unless I drop my pick. turn that bass down. So that's what it sounds like when you play a bass through a Fender Champ. You know, where it sounds like the amp's farting. You don't want that. So let's skip that. Go to the Proco Rat, the classic distortion, and let's hear how that goes. All right, now let's hear the Line 6 drive. Ha! Just kidding. For those of you that don't get that, watch my last video of the Fender Twin in the normal channel, and I played through the Line 6 drive. I was quite blown away with the horribleness of the tone. It could be a great sounding pedal, just matched with the right amp and matched with the right guitar and matched with a freaking miracle. Anyway, so thank you very much for joining me. This is the Pod HD500. I'm going through some of the amp models I like to use, and this is the Fender Twin Reverb through the Vibrato channel. I will upload this sound to Custom Tone, and I will put a link to it in the info box. So enjoy. I hope you enjoyed this, and be watching my channel. Please feel free to rate, comment, subscribe. Be watching my channel because I'm going to be uploading quite a few more here very shortly. So I hope you enjoyed this, and thank you very much, and God bless you.